I'm JP Tuesday.
And I'm Kiki Canon. As lifelong Disney fans, the work of countless talented Disney creatives have shaped our lives.
Now, as the Disney catalog expands, we're taking a journey through film and television to discover if that spark that shaped us as children lives on in adulthood.
Does your favorite Disney media still cast that same spell? Join us as we find out. We are Rewatching the Magic.
Hi, Kiki.
Thanks for noticing me.
Yeah, so before we get going, this is the last time we are going to be mentioning it. MarsCon 2021, as of this episode's release, is happening this weekend. And for more information on that, here, listen to this.
Dude, what'd you do yesterday? I sang Muppet Babies.
You were at the Dementia Track, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
The world's longest running comedy music concert series is coming from inside your house.
Wow, that went to a dark place.
Virtual MarsCon 2021 is taking place online for free on March 12th, 13th, and 14th.
Hi, MarsCon.
What is this?
I love you guys.
This year's event will have live stream performances by The Great Luke Ski, Devo Spice, Worm Quartet, Insane Ian, TV's Kyle and Linzilla, Il Nage, Beth Kinderman, Tom Smith, Throwing Toasters, Amy Englehart, an AMA interview with Ookla the Mop, and this year's music guest of honor, Robbie Ellis.
Why can't the Yanks make a decent flat white? It's rather basic coffee, it should not be such a fight.
We'll also be doing a virtual Q&A with the man who has been playing drums in Weird Al Yankovic's band for over 40 years, John Bermuda Schwartz.
I just remembered that I bought a cowbell for Do the Cow and completely forgot to use it.
Why do we even have a cowbell?
And if you'd like to help the track cover its expenses, you can buy the MarsCon 2021 Comedy Music Track Fundraiser Album.
Remember back in the days when I would just get on the mic and I would just ramble and funny things would occasionally happen and they'd end up on the MP3 album ad? That never happens anymore.
Available as an MP3 download, it's just under 4 hours of highlights from all of MarsCon 2020's live main stage concerts for just $30.
Who's here to see some jugs? All right, hey. Let's just take that line out of context and use it in the promo next year. Excellent.
This year's collection includes comedy and music by many of this year's acts, as well as Lauren Mayer, Cornflake, Mikey Mason, Michael William Hunter, Carl Brown, Brett Glass, Carrie Delby, and Mark with a C.
You can't spell MarsCon without Mark with a C. I've been sitting on that joke, and somehow I didn't make it the first 2 times I was here.
You can order and download the MarsCon 2021 Comedy Music Track Fundraiser MP3 album right now from the shop page at MarsConComedy.com.
Say, Kyle, do you have another song?
No, I want to just stand here and say words that aren't connecting.
Yeah, I
with the
bet you
audience.
do.
For details on the rest of MarsCon 2021 and where to go online to tune into all the live streams each day, visit the convention's main website, MarsCon.com.
And do watch out for flying lobsters.
Thanks for listening, funny music fans, and I hope to see you all, in a safe, socially distanced way, at Virtual MarsCon 2021.
Well, that's all I've got. Luke, is there more?
That may be the least enthusiastic self-outro I've ever heard in my life. I'm done. Thank you.
A 1-person standing ovation. Awesome. Thank you. A 2-person standing 3. Oh, let's just all stand up. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Can't wait. It's going to be a fun weekend.
Yeah, and a little note, we are actually recording this before final episode of WandaVision goes live, and of course before the new film Raya and the Last Dragon gets put up live. So next episode we'll give you our thoughts, I guess.
Yeah, non-spoilery thoughts. Don't worry about it.
So let's get to our main feature for this week, The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. And this is another one that I've wanted to do for a while. It's one of those, again, movies I saw on the Disney Channel growing up. But I never saw this as a movie first. I saw these as individual shorts that would actually play during the cartoon compilations that would air during the day. And these were released originally as shorts. To kind of backtrack here, Walt himself loved the books. Got introduced to the books through his daughters reading the books and laughing as they read the stories. And he thought it would make a good idea for a movie, and he eventually did get the rights. But couldn't figure out how to do it as a movie. So he introduced them as a short, doing the first short Winnie the Pooh and the Honey Tree. But unfortunately, less than a year after the Honey Tree came out, Walt Disney died. So they decided to continue on without Walt. Even though Walt was part of the original early production of the second short, Winnie the Pooh and the Blustery Day. And they did one more short after that successful one, Winnie the Pooh and Tigger 2. Eventually they decided, we have 3 shorts, they're about half an hour each, that's about the length of a movie, a little bit of additional animation to connect the 3 shorts, and you have a movie. So this is kind of like the older movies that they had done during the war era, where it was mostly a collection of shorts, but these were shorts that were already released. The public didn't really care, though, that these were already released shorts. They went to go see this movie, and it was a hit.
Yeah, I mean, it did have a little bit of extra to it. There is stuff in here that wouldn't have been in the original shorts.
The ending, mostly.
Mostly the ending, yeah. And all of the interstitial bits, you know, there are short scenes here and there to kind of connect it and make it one story. But, yeah, it's kind of interesting because we've talked about these movies before where they've kind of shoved shorts together or bits of things together and it, like, absolutely tanked.
Yeah, we talked about Zorro, which was just a compilation of episodes.
Yeah, and even though you couldn't really get them on reruns or anything by that point, it just didn't hit with the audience and all. But this one really, really did. To the point now where people think of this as a movie first and not shorts.
And they did eventually do a 4th theatrical short in the 80s, Winnie the Pooh and the Day for Eeyore, which is not on Disney Plus. Come on, Disney, give me some ER. We need more ER on Disney Plus.
So you talked about how you came to this movie. I came to this movie when I watched it for this. This is another one that just mostly passed me by. I had seen clips, but the longest chunk of this film that I had ever seen in my childhood, that is part of my childhood and kind of nostalgic for me, is the Heffalumps and Woozles song. Because in the 90s, early 90s, I guess, late 80s, early 90s, Disney did a series of VHSs that were Disney sing-along compilations.
Oh yeah, I remember those.
Yeah, and if you never saw them, they were clips from Disney movies or TV shows that were a song, and then they would put like karaoke lyrics on the bottom with a little bouncing ball. And one of the ones that had in it was Heffalumps and Woozles. That was kind of my entry to this film because I had never really watched it. I was not a Winnie the Pooh fan as a kid. I didn't read the books. I just, for some reason, this film never really made me want to see it. You know, when I'd see like, you know, hey, it's being re-released from the Disney Vault or what, it just never really made me go like, oh, I gotta go out and get that one. But the interesting thing is that while I would not really consider myself a Winnie the Pooh fan, I am a huge fan of Eeyore. I have so much Eeyore stuff in my house. It's one of my minor little collections. I have like Eeyore purses and Eeyore jewelry and little figurines and plush toys and stuff. Like, I have a whole lot of Eeyore stuff in my house, but I don't really know anything about Winnie the Pooh, which is hilarious to me.
And yeah, Pooh became this big franchise. 4 TV series. There was Welcome to Pooh Corner, which aired on the Disney Channel. There was The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh Saturday morning cartoon, which more people have seen. And 2 preschool shows, The Book of Pooh and My Friends Tigger and Pooh. 9 direct-to-video movies. Not just direct-to-video, there were other theatrical releases. 4 animated, 1 live-action. There was the Tigger movie in 2000, Piglet's Big Movie in 2003, the Heffalump movie in 2005, Winnie the Pooh in 2011, and, of course, the live-action 2018 Christopher Robin.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the franchise that won't stop. And I'm not saying it should. Sometimes, we ding Disney for kind of keeping zombie series alive. But Winnie the Pooh does seem to be one of those that just every time you introduce it to a new generation, they're just like, yeah, that's my jam.
It's one of the few franchises they have that just is evergreen.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, I knew a lot of kids my age who were super into Winnie the Pooh, even though I wasn't, lots of kids at school with like Winnie the Pooh lunchboxes and t-shirts and stuff when I was a kid. But also you still see it now. Like you still see little kids walking around with Winnie the Pooh t-shirts and stuff. It's interesting to watch this get passed from generation to generation and seem to just capture, kids constantly, which is fascinating to me.
All right, so because these were 3 individual shorts, some of the characters have multiple voices in this, and there are a lot of directors credited for this movie because, again, you're crediting every animator, every director, and every actor for all 3 shorts.
Yeah, but fortunately, most of the cast stays the same.
Let's get into it.
So, as the Pooh Bear himself, we have the great Sterling Holloway.
Disney legend.
Actual Disney legend, yeah. He's interestingly a Georgia boy. He's down from my neck of the woods, as we would say. He was really big in like the 30s and 40s. He was a sidekick in a lot of Gene Autry westerns. And he was good friends with Spencer Tracy, and he worked with Clark Gable and Bing Crosby and, Lon Chaney Jr., interestingly enough. He was originally supposed to be the voice of Sleepy in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
I could see it, but they went with
Pinto Colvig, yeah.
Yeah.
So Walt called him and asked him to come back and work on another film he was working on called Dumbo.
He was a stork in Dumbo.
He was Mr. Stork in Dumbo, yeah. And then he went on to be the adult version of Flower in Bambi. He's a narrator in The Three Caballeros. He's the narrator in Peter and the Wolf, Cheshire Cat in Alice in Wonderland,
Kaa in Jungle Book,
Roquefort in Aristocats. But still, his most well-known role was, of course, Winnie the Pooh.
A lot of Sterling Holloway's characters have the exact same voice.
Here is a baby with eyes of blue, straight from heaven right to you.
If I were looking for a white rabbit, I'd ask the Mad Hatter.
Say now, what have we here? Oh, it's a man cub. Oh, yes, time for my stoutness exercise. Up, down, up.
Yeah, that is true. But interestingly, because of that similarity, almost all of his recurring roles with Disney were passed along to Jim Cummings, including Winnie the Pooh. In our 3 shorts, we have 3 different Christopher Robins. We have, probably the most famous of the 3 is Bruce Reitherman. He is more famous, for being Mowgli in the Jungle Book. He is the voice in the, Winnie the Pooh and the Honey Tree segment. He now mostly seems to produce documentaries. Our next Christopher Robin is John Walmsley, and he's going to be most known as Jason Walton on The Waltons. So he was the one that was kind of the musical Walton boy. He played guitar and stuff. And once he grew up, in his adulthood, he ended up going mostly into music production. Our third Christopher Robin is Timothy Turner. This appears to be the only thing he ever did. He is the voice in the Winnie the Pooh and Tigger 2 segment.
And the ending.
Piglet is voiced by John Fiedler. We've talked about him before, previously when he's shown up on the show. Eeyore is a fascinating one because Eeyore's voice is not a voice actor. Eeyore's voice is Ralph White, who was an animator with Disney for decades. Basically, this seems to have been one of his last animation projects for Disney, actually. He was known to the animation team as this kind of gloomy guy with a deep voice, but he was an excellent animator. But apparently they had heard his voice around the studio and they just thought that's gotta be Eeyore. So his only acting credit really seems to be doing the voice of Eeyore in those early years. We have two different voices for Roo. The more famous of the two is actually Clint Howard. Clint Howard, you might know his brother Ron Howard or his niece Bryce Dallas Howard.
Clint Howard is that one guy that's in all of Ron Howard's movies.
Yeah, that one guy that you're like, why is he in all of Ron Howard's... that's Clint Howard. That is his brother. But Clint Howard was extremely famous as a child actor. He was the lead boy in a show called Gentle Ben, which was about a boy and his bear, real life bear, actual like grizzly bear. And that's where most people knew him from as a child actor, but also he would show up on a lot of TV shows at the time as kind of a guest actor kid. If you watch a lot of Star Trek, you also know Clint Howard. He was in the original series as that little bald kid in the Corbomite maneuver that wants Tranya. You know, he's always wanting to drink Tranya. He shows up in Past Tense, the Deep Space Nine two-parter, as a mentally ill resident of the Sanctuary District. He has shown up on Enterprise and Discovery as well. He's all over Star Trek lore. Was Roo in Honey Tree and Blustery Day. You know, he's still working with Disney to this day. The last thing he was in was Solo, a Star Wars story. So that may have been because Ron directed it, though.
Yeah.
but he's still working with the Disney company to this day. The other voice of Roo is named Dory Whitaker, and she was mostly known for this. She also had a couple of small parts on like Adam 12 and Marcus Welby and 70s shows around that same time when she was a kid. She doesn't seem to have done anything since about the time of this film. Moving on, we've got the voice of Roo's mother, Kanga, and that's Barbara Luddy. You'll remember we talked about her because she was the voice of Lady in Lady and the Tramp.
And Merryweather in Sleeping Beauty.
Tigger, we have Paul Winchell. We've talked about him before. Great comedian and ventriloquist. Rabbit, we have Junius Matthews. He was just kind of a workaday actor, honestly. But towards the end of his life, he hooked up with the Disney company and became famous for doing Rabbit and also the owl Archimedes in Sword in the Stone. So, yeah, however, this was pretty much his final film role. He died not long after this compilation film was put out. Moving on, we have the owl in this this movie, Hal Smith. Hal Smith is probably best known as Otis the Town Drunk from the Andy Griffith Show. So try to put that together in your head.
Especially the posh British voice they give to Owl in this movie.
Yeah, try to put that in your brain.
I will tell you the story of my Uncle Orville Piglet. Then you're gonna listen. He was a really great guy.
That would have been. I want to hear.
Drunk owl.
Yeah, drunk.
Talking about
drunk,
some long distance relative of his.
You know, he was one of those that he did a lot of voice acting around this time. He was on a lot of Saturday morning cartoon shows in the 50s through the 70s. He also later went on to provide the voice of Goofy after Pinto Colvig died. The kind of last role that he did was Philippe the horse in Beauty and the Beast. Gopher, this is a character that was created just for these shorts.
And he will tell you over and over again in this movie, he's not in the book.
Yeah, he was. Walt wanted a purely American character that could provide some more Americanized comedy for kids. So they created the character of Gopher. And he is voiced by Howard Morris. You will know Howard Morris if you knew Hal Smith, because Howard Morris you best know as it's me, it's Ernest T. Because he was Ernest T. Bass in The Andy Griffith Show. He was all over TV at that time. He also, if you watched the Jetsons, you may know him for singing a little song that goes, Eep, up, orca, ah.
That means I love you. Come on, fly with me. Fly with me. Come on, fly with me. And now, eep-op-orca means I dig you.
He was the original voice of Adam Ant. He worked all over Hanna-Barbera. And then later, he hooked up with Disney and did the voice of Gopher. He's one of those character actors that's everywhere, and you don't really notice him 9 times out of 10. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, he's always fun when he shows up on things. You know, he showed up in, like, you know, a couple of Mel Brooks movies and everything, and I would always go like, oh, hey! So, yeah.
And I guess we can get to our final role. The narrator, Sebastian Cabot, in his last role, as he died not long after the compilation came out.
This was the last role for a couple of the people in this cast, sadly. He is also known to Disney fans as Bagheera in The Jungle Book, and also the narrator and Lord Ector in Sword and Stone. But yeah, he also served as that. On TV, he was one of the stars of the sitcom Family Affair. He was Uncle Bill on Family Affair. If you like old Hollywood musicals, he was in Kismet. He's just, you know, if you needed a sort of larger bearded man and and Orson Welles wasn't available.
He looks like the guy that would do funny voices when reading the Winnie the Pooh books to his kids.
He did. He always had that very kind of jovial look to him.
Yeah.
He looked like just the nice uncle that you'd want to hang out with. You know, I mean, there's a reason he was that character in Family Affair. But but he had that distinctive, deep British voice, so it got him a lot of narration and voiceover work.
Well, one more thing before we get into the movie proper. All the songs in this movie were written by the Sherman Brothers, who are themselves Disney legends. I don't know if we've really talked about the Sherman Brothers. I know we talked about them a little bit in when we did Meet the Robinsons, because they Big Beautiful Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've written a lot of songs for the Disney company.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if when we get around to doing Mary Poppins, that's like 90% of the success of Mary Poppins was the Sherman Brothers. Yeah,
They wrote a bunch of songs that if you go to the parks, you'll hear a bunch of them. They wrote "It's a Small World." They wrote "Big Beautiful Tomorrow." They wrote the Imagination song from Into Your Imagination. One Little Spark. That's the name of the song. From Into Your Imagination. Yeah, honestly, you cannot go anywhere in that park without hearing at least one Sherman Brothers song.
Yeah, everything from Mary Poppins, everything from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, I mean, Jungle Book, Parent Trap, we talked about him a little bit in Parent Trap, you know, so, yeah, just absolutely. And they have the recording studio at Disney now is named after the Sherman Brothers, I believe.
That's good.
That they named their kind of big recording area.
Yeah, definitely one of those early, like, we like to talk about how Disney has their good luck charms. Definitely the Sherman Brothers were one of Walt's good luck charms.
Yeah, absolutely. And when they wrote a song, it was an earworm, you know. Now Disney's got the couple that did the Lopez's that are you know doing all the Frozen and your Agathas all along and all the other nonsense, but if before that if you wanted an earworm, you called the Sherman Brothers, which is why it will be weeks before I get Tigger's song out of my head.
He's the only one.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the first segment, Winnie the Pooh and the Honey Tree. Came out in 1966, 11 years before this movie came out. And, of course, like I said, this was the last short that Walt himself worked on. And, yeah, we start with, you know, the thing about the three shorts is that they all have the same intro, which is the intro for this movie. You see this little kid's room. You see all the dolls everywhere. And even though this is clearly, you know, British stories, they made the room intentionally an American kid. Again, try to connect to the American audience. I like the dolls that they have in this intro. Like, they never really sold them because they wanted to make the characters look like the cartoons. But I think the dolls look better. Maybe it's just me.
Well, yeah, and I think they were also kind of more, not completely, but they were kind of more inspired by the real toys that inspired the book.
More like the original artwork from the original books.
Well, I mean, the books were based on A.A. Milne's child, Christopher Robin.
Mm-hmm.
So, and most of the characters were stuffed animals that he played with as a child. A couple of the characters were Milne's creation. Mm-hmm. But the toys look kind of closer to the pictures of the actual stuffed animals. So they're recognizable, but they also look like something that a child would have played with at the time this is set. So. And
I'm noticing some reused props from Bathed in Toyland.
Yeah, they were probably just sitting around the prop department.
Like, you see the little boat and the tin soldiers. They're like, hey, we need toys for a kid's room. We have a bunch of these props left over from Bathed in Toyland. Let's throw them in there. That's cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we start off again with that theme song, that Winnie the Pooh theme song. And since this intro is from the Honey Tree, as the book does say, Winnie the Pooh and the Honey Tree, and Piglet is not in this short, Piglet in the intro looks a lot different than he would end up in the other two shorts. And, yeah, so we get the very happy and earwormy Winnie the Pooh theme song as the book opens, and yeah, this is straight from the book. At least the book that I had as a kid had this map of the 100-acre wood, just like this. Now, I don't know if it was because they wanted to match the movie or the movie was matching the book. I don't know.
I don't really remember having a Winnie the Pooh book as a kid, so.
So yeah, Winnie the Pooh and the Honey Tree. Winnie the Pooh starts his morning routine, and I love his little exercise song. Up, down, up and down.
And then eventually it's just eating snacks up and down, fill my tummy, yeah.
That's 2020 right there.
Yeah, you start out with such great intentions, and then you end up on the couch eating Cheez-Its.
And I do love that, as he's exercising, his scenes bust, and he has to redo his own scenes.
Well, I mean, it is the danger of being a stuffed animal, I guess.
Yeah. And it's a line that's close to my heart. Body positivity, because he is short, fat, and proud of that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the rest of the short ends up being one long fat joke, which I'm not super happy with, but yeah.
So yeah, Pooh, he's hungry, he's a bear, he wants honey, so he goes on his little quest to get honey, because he has eaten everything in his house. Yeah, he gets some bees, he goes to Christopher Robin's house, he gets the balloon. He's going up to get the bees. He does a song about that. And then he's just done with going after bees, but he goes to his friend Rabbit's house, and he's going to eat all of his honey there, and then he gets stuck.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Rabbit. Poor Rabbit. At times, there's points where you kind of feel sorry for Rabbit, and then he kind of flushes that goodwill down the toilet later in this movie.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, in the first short, I really felt bad for Rabbit, because when Pooh first comes up, he says, I'm gonna go over to Rabbit's house, because Rabbit is always so nice by saying, come in, Pooh, have some lunch, eat as much as you want, and everything. And then when we see it from Rabbit's perspective, we see that he really doesn't want to do that, but he's trying to be polite. And so his politeness kind of gets used as a weapon against him. And you're like, oh, poor Rabbit, because I've been there. I mean, I'm Southern and we're supposed to be polite no matter what. So, sometimes people take advantage of that and you just find yourself being like, sure, I wasn't doing anything today. Come into my house and eat all my food. It's like, you don't really want to do it, but you don't want to be impolite, so you let people walk over you sometimes. So I've really felt for Rabbit, and then later on in the following short, he kind of flushes that down the drain, like you said.
So yeah, that's the basic thing is, like you said, he ate so much, and now he's stuck in the rabbit hole. He can't get out. And yeah, we are introduced to Gopher at this point.
I am going to say I absolutely loathe Gopher. It is painful to listen to him. He talks with a giant, loud, piercing whistle.
Somebody call for an excavation expert. I'm not in the book, but I'm at your service.
Because he has to buck
It's not the kind of lisp or whatever. It's that they overdo the little whistle thing.
Mm.
And for someone like myself with a lot of sensory processing issues, it was, it's that nails on a chalkboard feeling. It's just every time that would hit, every nerve in my body would just scream out in pain. I hated it. It made it so hard to get through any scene he was in.
Kind of back into Rabbit is that, yeah, you kind of feel sorry for Rabbit in that he has to look at this bare butt blocking his front door.
In both senses of the word there. B-E-A-R and P-A-R-E.
Yes. Pooh's bare butt.
Yeah.
It's a good thing he's a stuffed animal, otherwise that would have been a very worse situation for poor Rabbit.
I kept thinking if they made that movie today, they would just put a bunch of fart jokes in it.
Yeah.
Which would have been awful. Don't do that. Yeah.
Let's keep Pooh innocent.
Yeah.
But yeah, he tries to get over, I'm just going to turn my chair around, I'm not going to look at it, and then here's his mirror. Like, now I gotta look into my mirror and see his butt.
And then he tries to frame the butt and turn it into art, and that doesn't work. And then he tries to draw a moose face on the butt and turn it into a hunting trophy, and that doesn't work. And then he tries to turn it into a shelf.
Yeah. Which all of this apparently was Walt Disney's idea. Because in the original book, he just hangs his laundry.
Now, see, that makes sense.
But Rabbit doesn't wear clothes.
Well, yeah. I didn't think about that.
Well, Gopher tries to dig him out first, but then there's so much dirt, he can't dig Pooh out.
Yeah, I really don't know why everybody else didn't just go into Rabbit's house and push. Because Rabbit has another door, like, that seems to be the front door because it's actually a door instead of a hole. I don't know why, like, the other animal characters didn't just go into Rabbit's house and push.
It would have been, granted, Rabbit is against it, but it would have been a lot easier just to push him back in and have him go out the other side.
Yeah.
But Rabbit doesn't want that to happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't particularly like this short, the plot of it, because, one, not a lot happens, and two, it's just a fat joke.
Mm-hmm.
The solution ends up being starve Pooh for a few days until he loses weight, and then we can get him out of the hole.
Yeah, and they pull and they push, and he pops out almost out of... I love the framing device of this is actually a book. So he almost launches right out of the book, and he ends up in the very same honey tree he was trying to get into the first time, scaring the bees off, and he doesn't want to actually get out of this one because he has all the honey and he's going to eat and gorge, and continuing the fat joke.
Well, also he's been starved for like 3 days at this point, so
it's true.
Let him eat the honey. Bears are supposed to be fat, darn it. It's how they hibernate.
So yeah, and that's where the original short would end, but they put some additional animation to kind of bridge the gap between the next short. And there is a lot of fourth wall breaking in these in-between segments.
Yeah, the characters talk to the narrator references the page numbers of the book. The characters reference the book itself.
Yeah, so these characters are aware they are characters in a storybook.
Yeah, it's a rather kind of interesting framing device, and in some films it would probably come off as ridiculous, but this one, it just works.
I think that's just because most of the characters are just that wholesome.
Well, yeah, and also, in the original stories, they're also kind of aware that they're toys. It's not exactly like they're not aware that this is kind of a fictional imaginary space that they're inhabiting ever, you know? So, I don't know. It really works here. I thought when I first saw the framing device, I was like, oh, this is going to get old really fast, but it never really did, which I like.
Which brings us to Winnie the Pooh and the Blustery Day, originally released in 1968. And let's kind of go in here. It is a very windy day in the 100-acre wood. And Pooh just goes out with his little scarf on because he needs to get the honey and all that. Where he meets up with Gopher again, who tells him it's Wednesday. And Pooh hears it as Wednesday because it's a blustery day. It is a common trope in Pooh, in the Pooh characters, because they tend to hear words and make it something else, because this is a child's imagination. A child would imagine Wednesday being Wednesday, and Pooh lives under the name of Sanders because it's over his door. You know, stuff like that.
Yeah, I particularly really like the some of the silly little jokes like that, some of the kind of puns and everything. I really liked the Wednesday, and that he kind of went around being like, you know, hello Rabbit, happy Wednesday, you know.
And we get our first introduction to Piglet properly in the Pooh verse. And he's trying to sweep up all the loose leaves that are in his little front yard, his tree house. And we get the joke, trespassers will. And it took me a long time to realize what that sign actually was. Because the full sign says trespassers will be shot.
Well, what else are you going to do with trespassers?
I can see, again, this is the imagination of a small child. So I can see him thinking trespassers will would be a person. And in his imagination, well, Piglet's uncle is trespassers will. But there is that dark side that thinks Piglet's packing heat.
Well, Pooh is sort of packing heat in the later short because he's got his little pop gun.
Yeah. But Piglet is so small that he just gets blown away by this wind. You kind of feel sorry for him because he's such a small little guy. And Pooh tries to help him because that's his best friend. And, but the wind gets him too. And they end up eventually knocking down Owl's house because the wind is so strong it knocks down his tree.
Well, I like how they get there, though, which is that Piglet is wearing a scarf and he starts to fly away, and Pooh grabs one of the strings on the scarf to try to help, but the whole scarf unravels, and eventually Piglet is just like a kite.
Yeah.
Being blown around. And I love that as Pooh is trying to, keep Piglet from flying away, that they go past Kanga and Roo is like, "Can I fly Piglet next?" Which I just think is such an adorable thing.
And poor Eeyore, he gets his house knocked down.
But he's okay with it, because they noticed him.
Now, Owl is trying to have freaking tea in the middle of this windstorm all the time as this wind is trying to blow away. And yeah, eventually the wind knocks down his tree. And the big point of the rest of the cartoon is Eeyore is going to find Owl a new house. Because he's a good friend. He's going to find somewhere else for Owl to live because his tree got knocked down. He got to live somewhere.
Yeah.
But the wind blows something else in as we are introduced to Tigger.
But he shows up at Pooh's house in the middle of the night and scares Pooh half to death.
Yeah. And we kind of skipped past it, but Pooh has a running gag talking to himself in the mirror as if it was another person. So he tells Tigger, "Oh, there's another Tigger in the mirror," and obviously Tigger acts like he's never seen a mirror before. And he tries to scare off the imposter Tigger and ends up scaring himself.
But that is such a cat thing to do. It's rare that Tigger, really acts like a cat of any size, much less, a tiger. But him in the mirror is like every kitten I've ever had seeing a mirror for the first time. And he's down on all fours and he's trying to growl at it, and he's hissing, and then he scares himself and he runs away and he hides. It's like I've seen too many cats in my life do that exact same thing, so it was very adorable.
So yeah, as all of this is coming, the wind has turned to rain. But as this is happening, Tigger tells him that Tigger tries honey apparently for the first time and hates it. But then tells him that honey is what's eaten by heffalumps and woozles. Which Pooh tries to correct him. "You mean elephants and weasels?" No. Heffalumps and woozles. They steal honey. As Tigger leaves. Which now puts the thought in Pooh's head that he must protect his honey from the heffalumps and woozles. Like I said, he has a little pop gun. And he tries to stay visual and stay up all night to protect his honey from the heffalumps and woozles, and ends up in his little nightmare, which we get the song Heffalumps and Woozles.
Which is, when I was watching this on sing-along video when I was a kid, I didn't know what the term acid trip meant, but if I had, it's very much...
Pink elephants.
Yeah, it's very much... And in my brain, I could never remember what this song was, because for the most part, I skipped past it. It was my least favorite song on the video. But I always remembered the Pink Elephant song. The Winnie the Pooh Pink Elephant song.
It's weird, but it works as a nightmare.
Yeah, it's a very effective nightmare. And it's not so scary that it will scare the audience of children. Sometimes they go too far with that when they're trying to portray nightmares. But it's believable that you can understand that Pooh would find it nightmarish, but it wouldn't give the kids nightmares, probably.
It's raining, and Pooh's house is flooded. The entire 100-acre wood is flooded. Piglet's house is flooded, and poor Piglet, the tide just takes him away, and he has enough time to write a 3-word note to get some help.
Yeah. Help Piglet me.
Pig with a stutter. Where have I seen that before? I'll think of it later. So yeah, Piglet and Pooh end up kind of lost in this sea of rain. All of the other characters eventually make it to Christopher Robin's house, which apparently is the water can't get there because kids' imagination. All right, it's safe over here. Come here. And all the while, Eeyore, the very good friend that he is, continues his search for a new house for Owl. A nice little joke here. He finds a house as it sinks in the rain. It's a little damp, though.
But, Pooh does not abandon Piglet, which is nice. They end up getting kind of swept away together. You know, the water eventually brings them together. And they both try to stay together. You know, Pooh is very much concerned with making sure Piglet doesn't get washed away from him, which is sweet.
While also being stuck in a honey pot.
Yeah, I mean, there is that.
So they eventually, Christopher Robin eventually finds the letter, sends Owl to go find him. And, but of course, like we saw earlier in the short, Owl is too busy telling everyone about a tall tale about one of his relatives to realize that they're about to go over a waterfall. And poor Piglet just goes over in this little chair. He tries to save, but as they go over, Pooh and Piglet switch. Because Pooh ends up on the chair and Piglet ends up in the honey pot. Which ends up saving them as they ended up sailing off to Christopher Robin's house. And according to Christopher Robin, he saved Piglet, so he's a hero.
Yeah, so they're going to have a hero party.
So they have a party with lots of honey. Hero honey. I love how it says hero honey on it.
Yeah. It's a hero party. You got to have hero honey.
And cake.
And cake. Hero cake.
Yes. But the party is interrupted by Eeyore, who has found a new home for Owl. And it's Piglet's house.
Well, it is nice, and it is in a tree.
And it has his name on it. W-I-L. That spells Owl. And everyone is kind of like, well, this is Piglet's house. This you can't give someone else's house to someone else, you know? Like, but like everyone is trying to. I mean, they understand what Eeyore's trying to do. He's trying to be nice, but it's like, this is Piglet's house. You can't give Owl Piglet's house. But Piglet, nervous and all of that, and trying to be nice himself, says, yeah, it is a nice house. I will love it in there. I'm gonna go away now. I don't know where I'm gonna live. And you feel sorry for Piglet, like it's. From Piglet's point of view, his house just got taken from him.
Yeah, I do not understand this at all.
Is this from the book? I don't know. If anyone who's a big Pooh fanatic would like to tell me about this.
Yeah, this is kind of awful. And it makes very little sense to me, because it's like, you know, before in the previous short with Rabbit, you don't want to be mean, so you let Pooh come in and you give him snacks. And Pooh is a bit rude and overstays his welcome and eats all the honey. Okay, you know, but Rabbit didn't do anything wrong. He was trying to be nice. And Eeyore probably didn't do anything wrong because he didn't realize that it was Piglet's house. And Owl seems to not realize this is Piglet's house. But everybody else does. So even if Piglet isn't brave enough to stand up for himself and be like, that's my house, then why wouldn't Kanga or something be like, no, Eeyore, it is a very nice house, but this is Piglet's house. You know, there are nice ways to do that.
Stand up for your friend, but they don't. Just keep saying, yeah, it's a nice house, knowing that this is Piglet's house.
To the point where Piglet's just like, yeah, okay, take my house. I'm gonna go die in a ditch or whatever. Bye. It's like...
And then Pooh says, no, you can live with me. Which is very nice for Pooh to say, but just say, no, Owl, you cannot live in my friend's house.
You know, let's build you another house. Let's find you another house. Let's, you know, I mean, because it's sad that Owl lost his house, but like, why can't Owl live with Pooh?
I think given the circumstances, Pooh would rather live with Piglet than Owl.
Well, everybody would rather live with Piglet than Owl, but maybe that's why Piglet gave away the house. No, if he's there, I'd rather die than listen to one of his stories again.
Yeah, now it's a double hero party because Piglet is now a hero for giving Owl his house, and now Pooh also is another hero for taking in Piglet.
Sure.
Sure, and they have a little parade announcing the two heroes, Piglet and Pooh.
Well, actually, it's mostly a parade for Pooh, and also Piglet did something good. I'm like, no, Piglet did the more generous thing here. A ridiculous thing, but a generous thing. But Winnie the Pooh is the title character, so the song's about him.
Hip hip Pooh-ray.
Yeah.
And that's normally where the cartoon would end. But we get a little in-between animation where, again, they break the fourth wall by talking to the narrator about what adventure they had and what's going to happen in the next adventure. And poor Piglet's like, I don't want to be in the next adventure. Leave me out of this.
Yeah, this one cost me a house. Go away.
Anyway, let's move on to the final short, Winnie the Pooh and Tigger 2. This short really mostly surrounds Tigger. He bounces everywhere. He rams into people. He tackles people. Specifically Rabbit. As, you know, on one hand, yes, Rabbit just wants to farm. It's fine. And his food is often ruined by Tigger's bouncing. At the start of this movie, you kind of feel sorry for Rabbit. But this is the point where Rabbit sort of becomes the bad guy.
Yeah, he is definitely the villain of this short.
Because he is done with Tigger. His plan is to take Tigger into the forest and leave him there.
Just for the night. It's not like a complete abandonment, but he's like, you know, maybe if he has to spend a night alone in the woods thinking he's lost forever, that will make him humble.
And the thing about it is, as Rabbit finds out later, Tiggers never get lost. But Pooh, Piglet, and Rabbit do get lost in the forest, to the point where they're literally circling around, finding the same spot. They walk around, they end up at the same spot. They walk around, they end up at the same spot. And Pooh brings this up. Hey, we've been walking for a while and we keep ending up back here. If we actually go looking for here, we might find home. It's not bad logic, but it's Pooh logic.
Yeah. And Rabbit is immediately like, no, I could find my way back here. Watch, I'll walk into the mist and then he just disappears.
Yeah. He's walked into Silent Hill.
Yeah.
And Pooh and Piglet wait and Rabbit never comes back, and that rumbly in Pooh's tumbly starts going off, and well, he has food at home and he's gonna follow his bear sense to get home. And I do like Pooh's reasoning. I could find my way home by sense of smell. It's just I couldn't do it because the rabbit kept talking.
Yeah.
Rabbit is stuck in the forest. And poor Rabbit, I don't know if I say poor Rabbit, but Rabbit ends up in this really dark part of the forest where all of these bugs and frogs and other creatures are making all of these noises, and he just freaks out.
But you know, he kind of deserves it a little bit.
He does, because again, he tried to leave Tigger in the forest. Like, that's not something a nice person would do.
You know, kids, here's a moral for today from your old pals Kiki and Tuesday. If somebody is doing something that you don't like tackling you and jumping on you and stuff, and you're like, I don't want to be touched, use your words and say, you know, I don't feel good when you bounce on me. Could you please go bounce somewhere else? That's what you do. That's what you do, Rabbit. You don't take somebody out in the middle of the woods and leave them there to die, Rabbit.
I mean, and on one hand, maybe Rabbit just got pushed too far. We don't know what happened between the last two shorts, but that was taking it a bit too far.
Well, you know, if Rabbit were to say to Tigger, like, please don't tackle me because I don't like that, and Tigger kept doing it, then Tigger's the bad guy. I'm not saying that means you should, like, leave him in the woods to die, but, you know, that's a bigger and different problem. Rabbit just seems to be like, I don't like this. And instead of just asking him not to do it, I'm going to abandon him to the elements.
So yeah, we then fast forward a couple of months. I guess since the last short took place in fall, this one takes place in winter. As however many months later it is, Roo has now seen Tigger as sort of a mentor in bouncing, because kangaroos can hop too, you know. Poor Roo, like. Roo goes through the whole overprotective mother thing, like, wear your sweater, wear your scarf. Yes, mother.
Roo, your mom is just trying to keep you safe. Be nice to Kanga.
As a kid, you would identify with Roo, but since we're close to middle-aged adults, we're going to identify with Kanga. So as our two hoppers keep on bouncing, let's go around the tree. Tiggers don't go around the tree, we bounce over them. So he bounces up to the top of the tree, and we find out that Tigger is afraid of heights. Roo's fine. Roo does not have a fear of heights at all. He is swinging on Tigger's tail, which makes Tigger very uncomfortable. Please stop. Don't swing my tail, please.
See, Tigger knows how to ask.
So there they are, stuck on the top of the tree. Meanwhile, Pooh is following footprints. The joke is they're his own footprints, but he doesn't know that because he's not a very bright bear, which they tell you many times in these shorts.
Yeah, these shorts are kind of mean, Pooh. And then Piglet kind of jumps on. He's like, for a bear with not much brains, you're pretty smart. Like, stop telling him he doesn't have much brains.
He has stuffing for brains. He literally has cotton in his head.
As do you all. Like, don't be throwing stones here. You've all got cotton in your heads.
So anyway, Piglet ends up going with Pooh, searching these footprints. They hear Tigger call for help. And they think it's a jaguar, or a jaguar. I don't think we've ever seen a jaguar in any of the Pooh stuff. We've seen heffalumps and woozles, but never a jaguar.
Well, it might look too similar to Tigger, so we can't have that.
So they end up seeing Tigger and Pooh in the tree. So now they have to get everybody. So they get Christopher Robin, they get the entire crew to try to figure out how to get Tigger and Roo down from the tree. Christopher Robin thinks of, we're going to use my coat as a catching blanket, and they're just going to jump off the tree and we'll catch them.
And it works really well for Roo.
Because Roo's very small.
And also Roo doesn't have the fear. So Roo's like, oh, okay, jump. That sounds fun.
I mean, yeah, he'd probably do it again if Kanga would let him.
Yeah.
And Roo calls up to Tigger, just jump down, let go. They'll be fine. It doesn't hurt. But Tigger is so scared of letting go from that tree that he just will not go down. Thankfully, we have fourth wall interference from the narrator, who turns the book over so Tigger can sit on the letters on the page and slide down them, which is actually a good use of the framing device, of it being a book.
Yeah, I really liked this solution. I thought it was super adorable, and I caught myself laughing at it. I was like, I did not expect that, but it's really cute.
Yeah.
We had another kind of use of the book like that in the earlier short. When the flood came, it actually flooded and washed away the letters from one of the pages, which I thought was neat. But this is a much more inventive way to use the framing device.
So yeah, before he went down, Tigger said, if I ever get down, I'll never bounce again. And so when he gets down, he's about to bounce away. And Ruff said, hey, you said you never bounce again. And you will never bounce again. Jeez, Rabbit. This is Rabbit.
Yeah, Rabbit is the villain.
Rabbit is the villain of this short. This completely heartbreaks poor Tigger. Like, bouncing is what makes him happy. You just took the one thing in the world that makes this creature happy, just because you don't like the fact that he does it.
He has a whole theme song about it, Rabbit. Come on.
Yeah.
Next, Rabbit just shows up in other media and is just like, no, Spider-Man, you cannot swing from a web.
No throwing that shield, Cap!
Yeah.
You will not push things with your mind force powers, Luke.
Yeah.
And the smugness of Rabbit as this is happening. Like, oh, all that goodwill you had in the very first short, completely gone.
I hope Pooh comes over every day and eats your honey.
Exactly.
You vicious little creature.
And all of the other characters are just like, poor Tigger. He did promise, so he has to keep his promise. But they kind of egg Rabbit saying, just let him bounce. And begrudgingly, Rabbit agrees. Yeah, well, I'll let him bounce. To which he's tackled again. But Tigger just tells him, hey, have you ever tried bouncing? I mean, he's a rabbit, right? Wouldn't rabbits hop?
Maybe that's Rabbit's problem. Maybe it's because he's never hopped.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's it. Maybe he's never actually tried it. And he actually tries it. He tries bouncing, and he finds that it's fun. And everyone starts hopping. Everyone starts bouncing. And they sing the Tigger song one more time. And I think that's what's Rabbit's problem, is that he just never tried to hop, despite being a rabbit. And once he did it, he realizes it's pretty fun. Granted, the tackling thing, I can understand why you'd be angry about it.
Yeah, don't tackle people without their permission. Consent.
Consent. We've talked about that. Consent. And that is where that short ends. And they do have one more little scene here. Christopher Robin's not going to be around much anymore because he has to go to school.
Yeah.
And the other members of the 100 Acre Wood are trying to understand what school is. What times 3 is. What ABC is. And why does Christopher Robin need to go away to learn it? But even though Chris is going to school, he won't be around much, him and Pooh are still going to be friends. They're going to be friends forever. Doesn't mean, and it's a nice lesson to teach kids. It's just because someone is going away doesn't mean they don't love you anymore.
Well, yeah, and he'll be home
for
breaks and stuff like that. It's not like it's a forever going away, although the movie makes it seem like it's a forever go. I mean, this does not seem like a kid going away to, like, boarding school for a few months, I
think it's a symbol of just growing up. Like, Christopher is growing up, and he, at some point, might leave Pooh behind. And if the other movies are any indication, yeah, he does.
Well, I mean, that was the way of things. I'm not sure it's the way now. I think our generation was kind of like, we don't like your way. We're going to do our own way. But, I really do think, I wonder if this plays the same. I got what the film was trying to do, and like, well, you grow up and you leave things behind and stuff, but it's like, I don't know if that's true anymore. There is the idea that, like, our generation is trying to recapture our childhood or whatever. But I think a lot of us never gave that up. I mean, some of the things I've had since childhood and continue to, like, use and get joy out of. I mean, we've talked about a few of them on the show before. My Little Mermaid lamp that sat on my bedside, I still have it. It still works. It's still a thing. It still glows in the dark. I mean, 30 years later, that's really impressive, by the way. Good job on that build, Disney. But I have, like, my Timon and Pumbaa that are original to Lion King being released. I have a bunch of stuff, not just Disney stuff either, but I do have a lot of my Disney stuff from my youth. And most of it's been kept in good repair, and a lot of it still has a place of honor in my house, and it doesn't feel to me the way that a lot of media that I watched when I was a kid portrayed adulthood, of like, well, you'll look back and remember what you lost when you were like, I don't know. I'm not sure I've lost a lot of that. I feel like I've retained a lot of that. Maybe I'm just a weirdo. I don't know.
You're not wrong. And we were the first generation to say we don't have to let our childhood go. We can still enjoy it and love it, and just as much as anything else, and still have productive lives as adults.
I mean, the biggest thing that our friend group has been talking about recently has been what? Muppet Show. We have my social media is just filled with people in their 30s and 40s going like, I'm sitting down to dinner tonight and I'm going to watch the Muppet Show. And I know I've been doing that. I've been sitting down to dinner, like 3 or 4 times at least since since Disney Plus put the series up. And that's just what I watch with dinner. And I know we've talked before that, like, well, Muppet Show was meant for adults, but that's not how we know it. This is media from our childhood, but it's now, like, what we're watching with dinner in our 30s and 40s, Like, this is like pour a glass of wine and watch the show you watched when you were a kid. And maybe it's just we know a particular group of people, but I don't think so. Like, the new DuckTales. The new DuckTales has been watched probably by more adults than by children. Even though it's intended for children, of course. Even stuff that was like, if you go back and you're like, well, what were movies that were like, well, you can still be childish a little bit, like Hook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like, oh, Peter Pan kind of finds some of his childishness again, but it still had that feeling of like, childishness is a sometimes food. I don't even want to say childishness, but like childhood joy. Not in a pejorative sense, but in that like wonder of the world. Even the ending of that movie is kind of like, I'll still go to work and I'll still be a lawyer, but we'll still play baseball sometimes.
Yeah.
I'll still make a joke. We'll have a tea party, But I think now the stuff that like people of our generation are creating are just like, no, that can just be life. I mean, you can also pay bills and live in the existential crisis that is adulting, but you can do it surrounded by things that make you happy.
Yeah. And
media that makes you happy, and playing dress up. Well, in the before times, we could play dress up and go to events, but, it's
the general idea of the adult Disney fan.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of started that.
Yeah.
Our general age group.
Yeah, they're the grown people who go to see these movies in theaters, again, in the before time, who go to the Disney parks by themselves, who, again, are watching... Who
have their weddings.
Yeah, they had their weddings at Disney.
Yeah, were Disney weddings really a thing you heard about a lot when we were kids? No, they weren't. Because adults were expected to grow out of it. I'm not saying they didn't happen, but they were like, did you know that some people have Disney weddings? Whereas, like, I got invited to a Disney wedding last year. It hasn't happened yet, but, it's like, that's just a normal thing now. There's a wedding in the park, like, every day.
Yeah.
In the before times. It's normal now.
Yeah. So let's wrap this up here. The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh does this movie have the magic or not? I think it does.
Yeah, this is definitely not... It is not a film for adults. It's not a particularly deep film, but it's enjoyable.
Yeah, it's one of those movies. If you need a movie to just put in the background, great. Yeah, put Winnie the Pooh in the background, and you can, hum the songs that you knew and all that. But this is a great movie to introduce the characters to, especially if you have kids.
Yeah, I think this movie really becomes interesting if you have children in the house.
Mm-hmm.
if you have children and you haven't shown this to your children, I think they would really enjoy it. As an adult watching it, it's cute, but it's not something I would put on a lot. You know, there's not a lot of meat for me as an adult. But, you know, if I were, like, babysitting a friend's kid or something, this would probably be a thing I would put on, because it's really adorable. It's colorful. It's got fun songs. The humor still works, except for the loud whistling with Gopher. That can go. I need that edited out, please. But, yeah, I think it's adorable, and I can understand watching it why so many people had a real love of these characters and this world.
All right, so let's move on to next week. You mentioned it. The DuckTales reboot is coming to an end, unfortunately. March 15th, the final 3 episodes will be aired, and that will end the series. So we are going to take a look at the original DuckTales. But that was a big question of, what do we go with? Do we go with one of the 5-parters? Do we go with random episodes? And we're going to go with the movie. DuckTales the movie, Treasure of the Lost Lamp. And let's see if OG DuckTales still has that spark, still has the magic.
I cannot wait. I absolutely loved DuckTales as a kid. I love it as an adult. I love the reboot. But I haven't seen the original episodes in a while, and I haven't seen this movie in even longer, actually. So this will be a fun, nostalgic trip for me.
And we will talk to you all next time. TTFN.
Ta-ta for now. Don't let the magic stop here.
Join our conversation online on Facebook at Rewatching the Magic.
Twitter at Rewatch the Magic.
And of course, new episodes every week at rewatchingthemagic.podbean.com.
Remember, the magic is for everyone.
It only stops if you let it.